The Fellowship of the Ring is hands down the best film in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Of all the great scenes in Fellowship, one that stands out as a triumph of visual storytelling is the scene at Bag End, where Gandalf's discovery that Bilbo's ring is in fact the Ring of Power sets the plot in motion. Up until that point, most of what we see is the comically jolly Hobbit lifestyle, kinda cheesy but instrumental in setting up the jarring shift in tone from joyful to deathly serious. Which brings us to this scene. Bilbo just skipped town and Frodo enters Bag End to find Gandalf deep in thought. This starts a sequence of incredible acting and cinematography which gives me the chills to this day.
He's gone, hasn't he?
From this first shot, the driving force of the scene is Gandalf's inner anxiety about the ring. We can see it not just through the great acting of Ian McKellen, but through the visual device of seeing Gandalf's face when his back is to Frodo. Clearly he's distressed, but he's too confused about it to let on. Okay, here comes one of my favorite shots in the whole movie. Our perspective flips, and the camera pushes in slightly onto Gandalf's face, which is buried in hair and beard. This shot is lit and staged perfectly. Look at how each strand of scraggly hair is clearly visible, and there's this one unkempt lock just draping over Gandalf's face. It really makes the character look authentic as opposed to costumed. These push-ins are essential to the scene. They're subtle, but create a huge amount of drama and atmosphere, during what's basically just a conversation between two people in a small room. Here's another great camera move showing Gandalf handing the ring in an envelope to Frodo. This pan actually repeats itself a couple of times here. Compare its motion with the stillness of Frodo. It's as if to contrast his ignorance of what's going on with Gandalf's state of stress. It heightens our sense of Gandalf's anxiety and creates visual interest in a very mundane gesture. So here's Gandalf bounding through Bag End behind a tracking camera. He bumps into a lamp, a great cell of the confining hobbit hole. He then stops, and again we see his face, but with his back to Frodo, putting us closer to Gandalf's inner struggle. He turns around to answer Frodo in a brilliant shot peering through the shaking chandelier. This obstructed view of Gandalf is another subtle way of heightening the tension. Then another amazing push-in. Remember, all Gandalf is doing here is bending down, but the movement of the camera right smack into his eyes makes the upcoming line land like a boulder.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
Then Gandalf goes on a journey to find out what the hell is going on, which seems to take only like a few weeks, but actually takes like 17 years in the books. We see the Black Riders and Minas Tirith and Sam getting shit-faced in the pub. Great. So Frodo is back in Bag End, and Gandalf pops out of the shadows. The camera whips into his face, clearly freaked out, with his hair brambly and his eyes wide. It's incredible how much of this scene is driven by Ian McKellen acting with his eyes. Take a look at all the subtle expressions he delivers.
Left you, Bag End. Keep it secret. Is it secret?
That is some good acting. Elijah Wood, for his part, is just fine. After a good bit of exposition from Gandalf, the pace again picks up to show Frodo frantically packing for his journey. The camera is equally frantic, sweeping and pushing in the whole time. This continues through the appearance of Sam and the conclusion of the scene.
What about you?
I'll be waiting for you at the Inn of the Prancing Pony.
The reason I love this part of the movie so much is the extent to which it pulls us in with barely any action to fall back on. There's no CGI or absurd fight scenes. Aside from the brief cutaways to external events, it's basically all dialogue, a good 12 minutes or so of it. One mark of great filmmaking is the ability to keep you absolutely glued to the screen during long stretches of dialogue or exposition. It's not just in the writing, but the synergy of cinematography, lighting, set design, acting, and soundtrack, which in the case of Fellowship of the Ring comes together beautifully.
Sauron